Every few months in my bullet journal, I find myself coming back around to a fairy tale theme, and this one is much easier than it looks. I've actually only used one PET tape, 2 washi tapes, a single pen, and some stamps. Let's get set up for June in my bullet journal. Hi, my name is Erin, and I really love shiny stickers. This will be my final month in this journal. This is the Song Brocade Journal in Blue from TIEFOSSI, and I only have a handful of pages left. A typical monthly setup for me at the moment uses about 9 spreads in the journal, and then I'll have a few left for memory keeping after that, and that will be it for this journal. And I owe you a huge apology straight up top because this gorgeous PET tape that is the entire basis for this theme is now unavailable where I got it, and I can't find it anywhere online. So I will link you to some stained glass window stickers in the description in case you like the idea of those and you can see kind of what's available, but I can't find this exact tape anywhere. And that's really sad because it is gorgeous. This one's actually a little tricky to work with because it has pretty big designs. They're all essentially in big rectangular chunks. Some of them you can kind of chop into little sections, and I'm going to do that a little bit throughout this video. It does feature butterflies in the designs quite heavily, and I am famously anti-butterfly on stationery just because I think they're done to death, but these are really pretty and therefore I am okay with the butterflies in this context. But the size of the designs has meant I needed to be pretty careful about how I'm laying things out in the journal in order to accommodate the designs, and I really wanted to let them shine without cutting them down too much. They're also very colourful. They've got that laser reflection thing going on, which I really enjoy, and that means they have a lot of visual weight. Like, they're quite arresting to look at. You look at it and you're like, wow, look at that sticker. So I am deliberately going pretty light with the rest of my decoration so that this can really shine and pop without feeling overwhelming. We're working on the cover spread at the moment, and on the right page here I'm making a Dutch door where I have this window sticker right in the middle of the spread, and I'm cutting off the page in a vertical line from top to bottom, but just trimming around the right side of the design here, so it makes this kind of tab that sticks out over the top of the next page. I really liked the idea of just whacking this down in the middle of the page and letting it really have a moment to shine on its own. And it's kind of a win-win for me to set up something that is bold and impactful but kind of easy, because I've been having some serious trouble with energy levels lately. I feel like I haven't entirely recovered from the sickness that I had at the beginning of March. I didn't test at the time, it was probably COVID, I don't know, but I'm struggling lately, so I needed something pretty easy and quick to do. When I have something really bold and I need just a little something subtle to go with it, I always reach for a script washi tape. I love them so much. You can get cheap ones from places like JOURNALSAY. This one's actually from Paper Monogatari and it is beautiful quality, and I'm loving using it so much. It tears really beautifully. I'm adding a whole block of that right behind where the flap of this Dutch door will sit, so that when that page is flipped to the right, you will just have this edge of text sitting behind it. But I didn't check the edge of where I needed that tear to sit particularly well, and there were a few spots where white page was showing through when the page was flipped to the right, so I just had to add a little bit of tape back in to fill those gaps. To make things feel balanced, I'm adding the rest of the tape that I tore off over on the left side of the left page of the cover spread. This is also where I'm going to add the header for June here, and I thought it would be cool to make it vertical and use some offcuts from some of the other stickers to build a frame that it could sit inside. I've been really enjoying fantasy lettering when I add spreads to my reading journal, so I'm going to do a lettering style a little bit like that. I had considered doing an italic calligraphy style here, which is what I did in my May setup. I ended up deciding I didn't think it would work so well in a vertical orientation like this, and I really wanted it to be vertical, but I started learning italic calligraphy about 6 months ago, and I felt like I really needed a refresher in the basics. But lucky for me, there's a class called Calligraphy for Beginners 2, The Elegance of Italics with Jackson Alves on Skillshare. Italic calligraphy has a lot of finicky things you need to remember, and I had definitely forgotten some of them, like the size of your lettering depends on the size of the broad nib that you're using, and you have to hold your pen on a really specific angle, and the slant of your lettering has to be another really specific angle. It was so good to refresh myself on all this, and the workbook has some awesome elements to help you too. The little 45-degree pen angle checker in the top corner is so helpful. Skillshare, the home of this class and sponsor of this video, is a massive and comprehensive online learning community, especially for creatives by creatives. Their thousands of classes cover so much more than calligraphy. They also have class categories for illustration, design, film and video, photography, entrepreneurship, and so much more. So while I'm focusing on italic calligraphy right now, I can continue to learn and grow in whatever direction takes my fancy in the future. And as a creative hobby aficionado, what could be better? But it's not just the making of cool creative things that you can learn on Skillshare, it's also the perfect place to turn your skills into successes with classes on marketing and business, personal development, and building a creative career. So you can take your passion and turn it into new opportunities, a side hustle, or a whole livelihood. Wherever you're at in your journey, you can start learning with Skillshare right now. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and keeping my calligraphy foundational skills sharp. I definitely incorporated some of the flourishing touches from that Skillshare class into my lettering for this June header, but this is definitely not italic calligraphy. This is a somewhat fantasy novel cover style font that I just freestyled. But it actually came out kinda cool. I'm using the brush nib here with the Tom Studio Lumos Duo pen. I'm still doing my 1 pen for a whole month project, so this was the only pen that I could use for this setup, and I had to ask my channel members for some help choosing an ink to match with the theme here. We ended up going with Tom Studio's Damson, which is this awesome magenta color. There are so many colors in that PET tape that I could have kind of eyedropper picked out and matched with the pen, but I have been missing pink. I don't know, I love pink and I feel like I haven't had much of it in my life lately, so this is definitely a purpley pink, but it was nice to get a little bit of pink back onto my pages because I feel like I've done so much blue lately. Were I not currently running this 1 pen for a month challenge, I definitely would have gone for something with some shimmer in it. I think that would have worked so beautifully with the theme, but you can't use shimmer inks in this pen, so I have opted for a flat one, and I did feel it was a little too flat, so we'll jump back in there with a black fine liner and just add a little drop shadow and some more detail to give that text a little bit of something to make it jump off the page a touch more. I'm also adding another washi tape here. This one is from the Quirky Cup Collective. It's the Secret Admirer washi tape from their Sugar and Spice collection, and it also looks like stained glass, so I thought it would be a fun little tie-in to that part of the main stickers that I'm using throughout here. Altogether, it's giving fairy tales, and I have not done a really fairy tale theme in my own bullet journal in a little while, so this felt really good. I'm going to leave the cover spread here and we'll turn the page and move on to the calendar spread, which is obviously going to be a little bit condensed compared to usual because I chopped off so much of what will be the left page of the calendar. June is a bit of an awkward month as far as setting up a calendar because it starts on a Sunday and ends on a Monday, and if you like your weeks to be Monday starting like me, that's just a bit wonky. Probably a great one for those of you who prefer a Sunday starting week though, so good timing for my Sunday starting pals. The dimensions I'm using for this calendar are actually the same as what I do if I want to fit a calendar on a single page, which means I've done 3.5 dot grid spaces wide for each of the columns and 4 dot grid spaces tall for the planning space, plus an extra dot grid space above each of those, so there's a space to add some color and the number for each day of the week. There's not a lot of room here for me to add many more of those beautiful stained glass window stickers from the PET tape, so I wanted to make sure I had some color represented here in another way. It's a little bit finicky trying to get this fountain pen ink to flow evenly through this brush nib. Like, it looks fine when you're lettering. I think when you're highlighting like this, it's a little bit more obvious that things are not going to come out evenly, but I don't mind the variation in the colors, and I was just trying really hard to stay inside the lines, which doesn't always work out, but close enough. Since this is the Duo version of the Tom Studio pen, that means it's kind of 2 pens in one, and I have the other end of it inked up with the Tom Studio black ink and the 0.3 fine liner tip, so I can just switch over to that end and add my numbers here right on top of those magenta lines in the calendar. It's very efficient, and I really enjoy not having to swap pens for this kind of thing. I really wasn't in the mood to do that hand lettering all the way through this setup that we did for the June cover spread back there. It's a little bit time consuming. Funnily enough, so is stamping, but I also really wanted to see if I could use the fountain pen inks with the brush nib of the Tom Studio pen and have it stamp the way that it does with my felt tip markers, because I am always using my paint markers and my Tombow dual brush pens with these little letter stamps to get specific colors without having to buy stacks of ink pads, and I am very happy to report that this works really well. I've also tried using straight fountain pen inks just in their liquid form on a brush to ink up my stamps in the past, and that did not work as well because the ink doesn't really stick to the surface in the same way. Something about the fiber tips on the Tom Studio pen really mimics the way that a felt tip marker works, and that means that this works way better. And I think these two pages just look so beautiful together. I'm very happy with how they turned out. We're not adding any windows to this one, but we will have them on every other page throughout the rest of the setup. I have yet to work out a good name as a catch-all for this page that we're working on here. This one encompasses a few things and it has grown and expanded a little bit over the course of the year. I used to call it Goals, Favorites and Musings or something along those lines, and it has now adapted itself into Goals, Favorites, Anticipating and Working On. So it's a little bit about setting intentions, it's a little bit about reflection, it's a little bit about just living in the moment. I don't know what to call it. What would you call it if you had to give this page one name? Because of the nature of the PET tape that this whole theme is based around being somewhat vertical, I have had to pretty much divide every page into columns throughout this whole setup to make room for those to feature. So at the moment, the blank spaces on the page are where the planning goes, and obviously we have the decoration in the offset spaces of those. I'll have goals and favorites in the top left side there, and I'll have anticipating and working on in the bottom right. And there is just kind of an empty space for adding the planning sections here. Ordinarily, I would put a second line highlight or something of the kind, but I don't have a fountain pen ink that I think would work well for that. I don't want to switch between them in the Tom Studio pen, and I'm only allowing myself to use that pen right now. It's a self-imposed challenge. I know exactly which Tombow I would use if I were going to do this, and I might even, once the challenge is over, come back to these pages and add it. It's the N89 Grey. It would be the perfect second line highlight for this theme. I've done a similar theme in the past for August of 2023, I think it was, which used also a text, although it was a printed kind of book page text with some stained glass window type stickers, different to these ones. And I'm pretty sure I did use the exact Tombow that I'm thinking of here for that setup, so it would probably look too similar to that anyway. I could have done some straight lines like I did last month in the May setup, but I just thought let's leave it open. Let's just embrace some minimalism sort of this month and just see how it goes, because once there's text added there, once it's used for planning, it's not going to look so empty anymore, and that's good. On the right page, we've got a habit tracker. This one's about as basic as I think I can get with a habit tracker. It's just a table. We've got a little column for the number and the initial for each day of the week down the left side. I'm not adding any color into that because I think it would be a lot. With just a big solid stripe of pink down there, we don't have that much pink represented on the previous page, so I thought that would be a little bit of a shock to the system, you know. I'm just going to leave this kind of as is. I've got space there to track 6 different habits. Some of them will probably carry over from the previous month. Some of them I may not know what I want to track yet, so I haven't written any of the habits in because it's still too early in May at the time I'm setting this up for me to know for sure. But I like to get the videos up somewhat early so that if you need some inspiration for the coming month, then you can use my videos as a source of that. I also haven't really considered where I wanted to add my habits heading here. I didn't want to put it along the top because I felt like that would be too squashy and a bit wonky and unbalanced. So I'm just going to mimic the cover spread a little bit, actually, letter it vertically and just add some little details that are offcuts from some of the other stickers to bring in a little bit of an extra tying in kind of a vibe from one page to the other. Onward to the routine spread. I think this one is my favorite out of the entire setup for this month. This one came out really cute. The way I've set up the page is pretty similar to the goals, etc. page from previously, the last one, but I've kind of done it across 2 pages, so it's mirrored. It looks very nice and balanced once it's all done. Very happy. Pretty much just dividing the page into columns again and then using those spaces like a checkerboard. Some of them get some decoration and some of them get some planning space. This one does have an overarching name for the 2 pages of this spread though, so I'm going to bring back the lettering that we did for the June header back on the cover spread and give it a little moment to reappear here. And I'll use the stamps for the subheadings so that it's got this kind of hierarchy of headings, kind of like, you know, on a website when you'll have like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4. This one's sort of got a heading 1 and a heading 2, and both of them will be on this spread. I've talked about my routine spread in some of my previous videos this year, but in case you haven't seen those, I have been self-employed for such a long time. I ran a wedding photography business before I started this YouTube channel, and now the YouTube channel is my job, but I really don't have any routine in my life outside of some dance classes that I take, so I'm trying to build that back in. I'm rapidly approaching 40. I just feel like I need some structure in my life now that I haven't had in the past 12-13 years. But I also don't know what kind of routines work for me, so every time I try something out, month to month, I use this spread to keep track of what I tried and whether it worked or whether it was a total flop. And through this process, I have determined that I do need some flexibility. I really like being able to shift things around, and that's part of why self-employment has worked for me for such a long time. But I really want that brain conditioning of when I do these steps in sequence, it means this thing is next and my brain is just ready for it. Like, I'd love to have a morning routine. I haven't worked it out yet, but something I have been including in my morning routine lately that I'm really enjoying, I've discovered that I really need a slow morning. I need some time to wake up. So I've been giving myself half an hour in the mornings after I wake up to just drink tea and read a book, and that has been so delightful. If you have the kind of schedule where you can allow yourself something like that, I really recommend giving it a go and seeing how it works for you, because it is so relaxing and lovely. It's such a slow, kind of unstressful way to start a day. I mean, I guess that depends on what you're reading. If you're reading something really stressful, you might find it to be less of that, but I'm really enjoying it. It's so nice. I love it. It's so pretty. Let's move on to my content planner spread. This one is kind of a weekly spread in disguise, especially given that in the month of June there will be 8 days of the month that I will have a video scheduled to go up on my channel, which is really, even though it's called my content planner, this is really just for YouTube video planning. I don't plan Instagram content or anything like that on here anymore. I just do that in an app where I can pre-schedule everything, and I do a month of Instagram content at a time because I really don't have the brain bandwidth to do more frequent Instagram engaging than that. I do also plan out my YouTube content quite far in advance on a Google Calendar, but once we get down to the month, I typically know what's going to go up on which dates, and this allows me to have a little kind of workflow checklist for each video. I can make sure that I'm staying on track, I'm not getting too far behind on things. Maybe lately I have been getting a little bit behind on things. This lets me see at a glance what needs to be done, which videos are at what percentage of completion, essentially. Some videos take a lot longer to put together. Some things like the reading journal are kind of cooking over the course of a whole month. Other videos I can kind of essentially shoot and edit and turn around very quickly. So it really depends on what the content is, how involved things are. Sometimes things don't quite work out and I have to delay or miss an upload, but this is kind of the best case scenario, what goes on the content planner. The top row is for Tuesdays and the bottom row is for Fridays, because those are the days that I try to have my content published on. Technically, it's actually the morning after. It's like 2 a.m. on a Wednesday or 2 a.m. on a Saturday, but I like to have them for the previous day in the journal so that I don't accidentally end up staying up until 2 a.m. editing videos, because that's not fun. But for algorithmic reasons, because a majority of my audience are in the United States, I have to publish my videos at a time when people are more likely to watch them so that the algorithm doesn't go, ah, that's trash, and then show it to nobody. So that's why I post at 2 a.m. Not quite the dividing the page into 2 columns system here. It's kind of dividing the page almost into 3 columns, but the outside ones are bigger and purely decorative, and all of the planning happens in the middle. This really could be a weekly spread and you just have a notes section in one of them instead of a day of the week, because obviously there are only 7 days in a week. So that would be a fun way to adapt it if you don't actually have a need for a content planner. Just instead of doing all Tuesdays and all Fridays, you could do a typical week inside here. But it also never hurts to have a think about how you could adapt a spread that maybe doesn't suit the purpose that the original creator set it up for you, if you could make it work for something that would suit you and benefit you. So something like this with the specific dates is probably a little limiting, but if you were to set this up with a full calendar, maybe it could be an assignment planner for school or university, or a project planner for your workplace. Honestly, this is what I really like about bullet journaling, and why I keep coming back to it year after year, is that level of personalization. So whatever it is that you need, you can find a way to plan for it in one of these bad boys. It's so good. All that talk of my incognito weekly spread back there for the content planner, let's actually set up a weekly spread for the first week of June. I'm essentially dividing each page into 6 little sections, so there'll be 3 columns, and I'll also divide the page horizontally across the center to give us an extra kind of row underneath. That's going to leave me with 12 sections that I've divided the spread into. Obviously 12 is way more than we need for a 7-day week, so I'm going to use some of those sections as designated decoration sections, which is really hard to say quickly. My thought was that I kind of wanted to scatter them around somewhat randomly, and you can see where they'll go because they're the sections that don't have a stamped heading, but they do look a little more premeditated than I had planned. That's alright, it still works. I'm using the Quirky Cup Collective washi tape to line the bottom of each of those rows so that they have kind of a common ground, a familiar kind of anchor. And then I'll use the script washi tape and those beautiful window stickers to fill in those gaps that are in between the weekly planning spaces. The end result is some pretty narrow planning spaces for some of these, but I think it's still going to be plenty to work with, so I'm actually not worried about it. Looking back at this now, I was really keen to get as many of the windows down on the page as possible, but I sort of wish I left those ones with just the script washi tape because that looks really pretty. But I am going to persevere and add some more stuff. Also, by this point, sometimes I feel like my eyes have sort of switched off because I've been doing it for a few hours generally by now. And I was also listening to an audiobook. It's our book club book for the month of May. It's called The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. And I was pretty absorbed in that too, so my eyes just were not working. This is a lot. I recognize that it's a lot, but it's also a weekly, so it's only got to serve me for a week, and then we can look at something different. Before we wrap up for this video, there is one thing that's bothering me, and it's this weird uneven back edge of the Dutch door sticker. It's occurring to me now that that one's pretty symmetrical, and I probably could have found that sticker and added half of it to this side, and that would have looked really cool, but I didn't think of that until just now, so instead I'm just going to cover the back of this with some script washi, which is pretty easy to do. You just lay the washi down on top, get your little cutting mat out, and go over the edges with a craft knife, and you've got a nice irregular edge that matches the shape of the thing that's on the other side. It just makes it look a little bit more finished and polished, which I always enjoy, and it will slightly reinforce this bit of paper as well and make it a little bit stronger, not by much, but a tiny little bit stronger, which can be useful for this kind of thing. But now it is complete and we can have a flip through from start to finish of my June setup in my very own bullet journal. This is my last setup in this journal and it has been a joy to use. It's always a bittersweet feeling when you're coming to the end of a notebook because it's exciting to start a new one, but you've poured so much of your soul into the existing one. I'll be posting a full flip through of this entire journal once we get to the end of June, so stay tuned on the channel in case that's something that you would like to see. And make sure you leave a butterfly emoji in your comment down below so that I know you watched all the way to the end of the video. I'm currently running a giveaway on a different video for a journal that I have fully set up for the second half of the year, so if you're interested in that, hit that link on the top right side of the screen, and under that is another video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy.